to three different recommendations geared around US Bank's entrance into the esports and gaming industry. And finally, we'll present to you an in-person activation for US Bank at a popular gaming convention in California, TwitchCon. Finally, we'll open up for all of you to questions at the very end. So first, here's a brief overview of the competitive landscape and SWOT analysis into the gaming and esports space. Really, there are three key points that I would like to have you guys take note of as we progress. One is the strength of US Bank and their emphasis on community. As we will discuss a little bit later on, having community is a really important part of the esports world, and US Bank already having that mindset based around community will be a huge advantage compared to other brands. Secondly, US Bank has an opportunity in this segment as there's very few retail banking organizations that are currently in the esports and gaming industry and space. Thirdly, a poor first impression in this industry is a major threat for US Bank, and we'll dive into that a little bit down the line as well as we talk more about the industry as a whole. So here you will see a competitive overview chart which compares US Bank to similar retail banking organizations based on really two key important factors within the industry, which is the size of the reach of each of the banks and then the quality of community from the brand. This chart, we have the same competitors that you saw in the last one, but now we focus on esports sponsorship within those brands. So this compares US Bank to similar retail banking organizations based on their successful integration into the industry. So the criteria for success was based off of the parameters for what US Bank was looking for from this project, coupled with some subjective opinions from consumers of esports. We believe our recommendations will have your brand in the top right corner of your screen in no time. The last thing that we want to share with you is an overview of the esports and gaming industry. While esports is growing into more of a traditional sport in the sense, there are still a lot of anomalies with esports that we don't really see across other North American sports. Firstly is annual viewership of esports. So 380 million people either attended or tuned into an esporting event in the past year. Additionally, more than 150 million people have watched a stream on streaming sites like YouTube or Facebook. But the biggest of those streaming services is Twitch. Twitch is an Amazon-owned company that averages more than 25.6 million visitors to the site each day to watch streaming content. So a notorious brag for esports and gaming in general is their high engagement rates. League of Legends, which is a very popular title in the esports industry, actually receives a particularly high engagement rate at about 30%. Following suit with that, individual influencers in the gaming space typically see an engagement rate in the high 3 to 4% on all of their accompanying platforms. A very important part of this industry is the fans that reside in it. Esports and gaming fans are very loyal and they expect a lot of brands trying to enter the space, or excuse me, they expect a lot of brands that are trying to enter this space. So they hold everyone in a very high regard. Consumers in this market typically have community with a particular team, a group of streamers, or a streamer in general, and they support the brands that show support for for their favorite entities. Because of this, activations, they have to go beyond a logo on a stream or beyond just an advertisement before a video. The brand must create a sense of community around those they are partnering with to garner the respect and the interest of the consumer that they are trying to reach. All of our recommendations that you will see follow a particular theme of building a diverse and inclusive community within the esports and gaming space. And we fully believe that this theme and this mantra will enhance US Bank's brand awareness in the segment. Now that we have this understanding of the intricacies that go into the esports and gaming industry, we can begin to present to you our recommendation for US Bank's entry into this space. Our first recommendation comes in the form of a partnership via gaming and content creation. So you're currently looking at a Cash App case study from earlier this year when Twitch streamer Nick Merckx, who is one of the biggest in North America, partnered with financial assistance company Cash App. The partnership saw Merckx finding smaller and upcoming streamers and gifting them $500 worth of subscriptions to their particular channel. The activation was done live on Nick's stream with more than 65,000 people watching Merckx change the life of a smaller streamer. We believe there's an opportunity to replicate this activation with a focus on POC streamers and streamers that identify in marginalized groups. So we suggest US Bank partners with 3 variety streamers, Ewok, Kitty Plays, and then the biggest of the 3 in Myth. All 3 of these streamers align with the values and purposes of US Bank. The only red flag that we want to make you guys all aware of is that each of these streamers in some capacity and at some point partake in Fortnite or other FPS shooters on their stream. But we believe that their community has been built beyond those games, and we think that this partnership could be separated from those FPS titles. Additionally, as you can see, all these streamers have a healthy following, obviously some more than others, but in total, it would result in US Bank reaching close to 30 million impressions should they partner with all three. So how will we make this activation work? Well, similarly to that Cash App model that we showed you earlier, US Bank would fund the partners to go find minority streamers and support them with a multitude of gifts to their platform. The partners will do this live on their streams so that their viewers can engage with the brand and promote the building of community for US Bank specifically. And then finally, to help US Bank secure some new accounts, streamers will be given either a unique link or a sign-up code to drive traffic to US Bank in the opening of new accounts. We'll roll out this activation over the course of a year, starting between now and May, prepping the materials to pitch to the streamers that we are targeting. From there, we can have conversations in the month of May to pitch and agree on financials with those that we decide to partner with. From there, we can have, following that scenario, the promotion will then run for a full year, giving the streamers plenty of opportunity to introduce US Bank into the space. And then we can evaluate the promotion in July of 2022 to see if it can be either replicated or perhaps expanded upon as we continue to move forward into the space. Our projected budget puts us at roughly $1.406 million, with both Ewok and Kitty Plays getting about $250,000, and then Myth getting $750,000. That structure, just so you're aware, comes based off of the engagements we can expect from each of the individuals' gross following. We have 3 different expected returns based on the success we foresee this activation having. Our middle ground return to the right of your screen there is based off the conversion rate from US Bank's Twitch ad campaign. Carolyn will talk about this a little bit more in depth in a bit, but essentially it takes roughly 10K impressions for a new acquisition, meaning that we can expect about 2,690 new accounts from this particular activation. We also have a bare minimum. So at the very least, we expect there to be only 2,394 new accounts. But since we expect a more efficient rate, given the engagement of this activation, we actually do foresee a higher ceiling of acquiring closer to 3,000 new signups through this particular sponsorship. While the acquirements of new business will be important, this particular recommendation emphasizes US Bank's entrance into the gaming space, and it really leads it off with a meaningful activation that is going to be necessary for success in the industry. All in all, this activation is simple, but it's going to be very effective, and it's going to be a very effective opportunity for US Bank to announce their presence in the space with a sponsorship that builds community, promotes the growth of diversity, equity, and inclusion within gaming, and will build brand awareness for US Bank. Now over to Carolyn to look at our second recommendation.
Thanks, Sean. So the next strategy that we recommend for US Bank is creating a partnership directly with Rocket League, which is an extremely popular game that combines soccer and cars in a fun and explosive way. It was created by Psyonix and was acquired by Epic Games in 2019. So we think Rocket League is the perfect game for US Bank to work with because it's one of the most popular non-first-person shooting games. And since its launch in 2015, there have been over 75 million people playing at least one game, and a large percentage of those people are in the US. Just last week, season 3 of Rocket League launched, so you can tell they're keeping up to date with content to keep their audience engaged. The game, aside from being fun to play, is also super fun to watch because it's super easy to understand, and the quick matches make it a hit with people who aren't necessarily native to video games. That said, even though it's popular with amateurs, the esport aspect of Rocket League has also taken off recently. Last month, they hosted a portion of their championship series and had 1.5 million views on Twitch for day 1 in the first 24 hours. On top of that, Verizon and Ford have recently entered the sponsorship space for those championship series. And then they've also done partnerships with brands like Hot Wheels for in-game content, which shows their willingness to enter creative partnerships. So for all those reasons, we felt that US Bank partnering with Rocket League made a lot of sense. And then when we were researching how other service providers have activated esports partnerships, we came across Verizon's deal with World of Warships, which is another game owned by Epic Games. Essentially, Verizon offered a promotion to new and existing customers that they could authorize from their Verizon accounts that was worth about $75 within their World of Warships gaming experience. That promotion was featured both on the World of Warships site and the Verizon site, and we decided to kind of rework that and came up with the following. So within Rocket League, the place where gamers go to buy their new vehicle bodies, wheels, decals, trails, all that good stuff is the item shop. which features items that tend to rotate daily, although some stay for a little bit longer than that. Because of that rotation, players visit the item shop super frequently. So we thought US Bank should create a promotion that can be featured in the item shop. Now, this slide features a very obvious mock-up, but the idea is that Rocket League players can improve their rides on us. The messaging there is super important because it allows for a logo appearance, which would increase awareness. And the blurb would also have to feature the credit shield just to make it clear that Rocket League currency is involved. And then to learn more about the deal, players would click on the item and a more robust description would appear. So for the promotion, in the case of US Bank and Rocket League, it would have around a $35 in-game value comprised of 3,000 credits, which typically retails for $24.99, and Rocket Pass Premium, which is 1,000 credits, but doesn't really have a direct exchange rate. Regardless, the monetary value is free to any player with a US Bank account. So the description would include that existing US Bank customers could verify their customer status on their US Bank logins in order to claim the bundle with a link to login shared. And then the description would also detail that all of the new US Bank customers could claim the boost during their signup with a link to create a new account. So a few important things to touch on. First is the potential audience. So as of February, Rocket League had an estimated over 1 million daily active users across all of its platforms. Second, like I said before, the item shop keeps people intrigued and maximizes potential visitors because of its rotation. And we think it's fair to assume that 4 out of 5 people would check the item shop each time they play to see what else is out there, just because microtransactions are super common. Third is the duration. So we don't think it's smart to do a promotion in the item shop that's super long because we don't want to disrupt the integrity of that rotation. But we do think it's important to keep it up for long enough that impressions result in more than just awareness and turn to brand consideration. So based on previous year's data, October is a great month to target in maximizing those potential impressions. Fourth is the conversion rate, which Sean hinted at before. Based on the data that US Bank provided us on their returns from a Twitch ad campaign that they ran, we came up with a conversion rate of impressions to new accounts opened. So the exact numbers are on the slide, but the number that matters is that it took 10,907 impressions to create a new account. So the math that then gets us to the ultimate metric is new accounts opened, which I'll walk through now. So if 1 million people play Rocket League each day in the month of October, that's 31 million views. And if 4 out of 5 of those plays result in a trip to the item shop, that's 24.8 million impressions. Then if we divide that by the conversion rate we just calculated, we get an expected accounts of 2,273 new accounts opening. So our proposed budget for this partnership is $700,000, $500,000 of which would go to Rocket League in order to compensate them for partnership rights and ad space that the promotion would require in the item shop. And then an additional $100,000 to them as well to compensate for a portion of the credits and premium passes. And then lastly, we incorporated an agency fee of $100,000 for whichever agency US Bank chooses to help implement the partnership to cover things like messaging, design, and execution. So like Sean mentioned in his slide, we've outlined the below and above expected returns on the slide, but we want to emphasize the expected return. With 2,273 accounts opening, the new customer acquisition cost is just under $308. We think that's pretty solid considering our research showed that the typical customer acquisition cost in the banking industry is around $303. We also want to reiterate that the conversion calculation was based on a stagnant ad that didn't involve any interaction. So we think that the expected returns are extremely achievable. As far as the activation timeline goes, we recommend starting with an agency now to solidify messaging and graphics. That would give about 2 months of planning time before June when US Bank should approach Rocket League about the idea and pitch. The next step would be advertising the promotion and then actually rolling it out in October on both the US Bank and Rocket League websites. And then the final step would be an evaluation of the success of the promotion in December. So whether or not it's worth repeating, or maybe it should be done in another game, or maybe it was successful because it was with Rocket League. So looking into further opportunities with them, like US Bank sponsored items to feature in the item shop, as well as maybe US Bank Stadium as an arena in the game. We truly think this promotion is just the beginning of a long-term partnership with Rocket League. And now I will hand it over to Haley.
Thank you, Carolyn. Our next activation focuses on US Bank seamlessly integrating into this space through a partnership with 2 of the top teams in esports. The first is Team Envy, and the second is focused on Space Station Gaming. We felt that these 2 candidates were great for a partnership with US Bank based on an analysis of US Bank's code of conduct, where we were able to find 3 common themes such as production, potential, and people. First, as a production standpoint, both Team Envy and Space Station Gaming focus on producing content as well as performing at the top level in the international and domestic space. This is similar to what US Bank's marketing strategy currently is. Next is potential. While they are already dominating the field, they're still trying to grow gamers as well as content across various games in the space, similar to what US Bank does. They're already kind of dominant, but we're still trying to grow that potential reach that we could have as well as acquisitions we can create. Finally, people. US Bank puts people first, and so does Team Envy as well as Space Station Gaming. They do this by focusing on diverse athletes and doing content series focused on female gamers. We believe that these three organizations could receive mutual benefits through the competitive combination that this partnership would produce. The first is from the fact that Team Envy as well as Space Station Gaming compete at such a high level, and they can bring in a lot of brand recognition for US Bank on this space, just based on how much they produce through their tournament features as well as different games that they promote on live streams. The second aspect of this mutual benefit comes from the financial literacy awareness opportunities. So for these teams, they receive a lot of monetary value through wins and tournament appearances. This could be a great opportunity for US Bank to come in and teach these athletes, teams, and their fans about how to budget this money, how to apply it to further investment, and just how to be very aware of where your money is going. Finally, as I already mentioned, is consistent values. All three of these organizations focus on bringing in a DE&I space, whether that's mental health coaches for athletes and fans, or focusing on transgender employee opportunities within your own organization. On this next slide, you will see that we break down the key components of this partnership being a jersey placement, digital recognition within major events, and a content series with our teams. To activate this, we have a 4-step program laid out. Between now and June, we really want to establish relationships within these teams and develop a comprehensive ask for US Bank. From June to August, we believe that, as you will see on these next slides, we can develop all the marketing assets we will need to make this partnership come to life. In step 3, you'll see that in September, we hope to launch this jersey and the in-game partnerships to kick off the RLCSX fall partnerships. And then finally, in step 4, as Will elaborate, we will begin to kick off this partnership and continue it through our content series speaker series. The total cost of this is going to around to about $2.8 million. As you'll see on these next slides, we can really see these activations come to life with the jersey decal sponsorship here, where both of these teams would wear these jerseys at major events and have featured content on social media streams as well as their live streams. On this next slide, you will see how we can seamlessly integrate the logo for US Bank without pushing it and making it disingenuous in the space. Now, Will is going to kind of elaborate on what this content series will look like so we can come off as more authentic when doing this team sponsorship.
Yeah, thanks, Haley. So like she mentioned, we don't really want this partnership just to be about valuable ad space and logos. Really wanted to be more ingrained with these teams and also tie in some DE&I initiatives into the relationship. So once we make the deal public, we aim to create a content series with both of these teams in collaboration with Community. Community is an organization that's committed to making esports and the gaming industry more accessible to minority children. So competitive gaming is super high, so they try to minimize these costs through scholarships. And the long-term goal of the organization is to have these passions lead to successful careers in STEM. So we're going to utilize our new access to each of these organizations' streamers and athletes to host Community founder Ryan Johnson on their stream and talk about the digital gap that the pay-to-play model has kind of created. And also during these conversations, we can highlight US Bank's current initiatives like investing in Black-owned businesses and also a commitment to their scholarship fund. This will give US Bank and Community a ton of exposure on already popular channels. So we suggest also committing $400,000 to Community's scholarship fund, and these scholarships are used to bridge that digital gap between minority students and their peers to give them the same access to technology and other resources. So this donation will really go a long way in helping build a more diverse gaming future going forward. So this kind of brings us next to our in-person activation, which will be at TwitchCon in Q4 2021. For those of you that aren't familiar with what TwitchCon is, it's essentially a 3-day celebration celebrating all things gaming. The most recent TwitchCon was scheduled to be in San Diego in 2020, but was pivoted to an online platform, obviously, but generally it takes place in California during the late fall. But the event essentially hosts panels. It has brands displaying their newest hardware and software. It also has esports events centered around popular games and has a party that wraps up the entire event. The reason that we kind of selected TwitchCon was because it's already a really well-established event that's highly attended in person, but also has a really big key aspect on the digital experience through Twitch's platform, and also having individual content creators kind of sharing their experience at the event. So the main objective for our activation is to build US Bank's presence in the gaming landscape as a trusted and dedicated member of the community, but also we kind of want to increase brand awareness and generate some potential leads from visitors at our TwitchCon experience. So who exactly is the audience that attends this event? So it hovers around 28,000 people for 2018 and 2019. And of this group, the majority are in the 25 to 34 age group, with the next largest demographic being the 18 to 24. So these age groups are really prime candidates to market to because they're really gaining more financial responsibility and making important decisions. You can see here also in the study done by Nielsen and Twitch that attendees are really likely to partner with these TwitchCon partners. So 62% are more likely to purchase from partner brands and 59% feel more loyal to the partner brands. So this kind of confirms the potential benefits of this partnership. So our actual tactics for our TwitchCon experience is to come in at a diamond level presenting sponsor. So this gives us physical space on the expo floor with a 50 by 50 booth, and also gives us signage throughout the conference that will be seen by everyone. The package also gives us inclusion in the swag bag, which can give us a physical reminder of US Bank's presence at the event. Along with this in the sponsorship package, we get digital ad space on their website and app, as well as guaranteed 6 million impressions. Half of those will come in the 2-month span leading up to the event, and the other 3 million are guaranteed throughout the 3-day event. So this is projected to give US Bank about 25% of the share of voice throughout the 3-day event. And this is projected to cost US Bank $550,000 to get up to the diamond level. Kind of our idea for the booth is to create what we call the US Bankade, essentially an arcade-esque experience where TwitchCon attendees can come and play their favorite games, but also get the opportunity to do meet and greets as well as play with their favorite streamers. We'll use our relationships with Space Station Gaming and Team Envy, as well as the streamers we mentioned in our initial activation to bring in attention to the US Bankade. And then to kind of build out that lead list, we're going to ask people to provide their contact information to enter a chance to win 3 tiers of prizes. So those prizes range from PlayStation 5s up to a VIP experience at the Rocket League Championship Series in 2020. But overall, we really think making this experience more of a fun and engaging area where people don't feel like they're being sold something will help build trust with the community. Then capitalizing on those streamer relationships will really bring in their own fan bases and increase engagement at our booth. Then now looking at the financials, we're right at our $1 million budget here, and that other expenses section encapsulates the physical building of our booth, graphics work, travel, shipping costs, and all of those things. And through industry research, we found that multiplying the cost of the space by 3 is a good estimate for that overall budget. And our expected return on our objective is essentially broken down to digital and physical. We use that same math that we've been using before to get 550 new accounts from our ads alone, but also using that Twitch study, we found that about 20,000 people are going to be now more willing to consider US Bank as their banking choice. We don't necessarily believe that's going to generate 20,000 new accounts, but we do believe it's going to really increase their brand awareness and make a really impactful entrance into the industry. And to tie a bow on kind of our entire thing, our vision for US Bank's gaming strategy is a multi-level approach. We really want to first engage the community through names that they already are aware of and familiar with. And this will let the community know that we are committed to building a positive gaming environment without disrupting their current one. And now we're going to show Rocket League players that we want to be a part of their passions, whether they're an unranked amateur, playing with their friends, or they're on their way to being a grand champion. By offering them credits to build their perfect car and game, we're going to draw new eyeballs to US Bank and also encourage them to bank with us because we understand what they care about. Now teaming up with 2 top-tier esports organizations, we're going to allow US Bank to show that they understand the dream of competing at the highest level, and they want to help people from every single background get that opportunity. We'll use the power of these organizations to build the next generation of pros and hopefully inspire kids everywhere to pick up a controller. And during a similar time frame, we're going to be at the TwitchCon, obviously, and show that US Bank's committed to the gaming industry for the long haul. And it's really an organization that aims to help people pursue their passions and use those passions to bring communities together. And overall, we really believe that this approach will make a strong impression on gamers at every single level and will lay a great foundation for US Bank to build off of going forward. And now we'd love to open it up to any of your questions.
Thank you, Team B. That was great. I will ask you to stop sharing your screen for right now. You can pull it back up if a judge has a question that you'd like to reference on the slide. But judges, if you want to turn on your cameras and microphones, I will put 10 minutes on the clock for a judge's Q&A. So whoever wants to get started for the judges, go right ahead. No order here.
I'll start. Love that you guys included a ton of data. You called out community, the diversity, inclusion, all of it's great. So kudos on that. I love putting even a case study. One comment on the case study that I'd highly recommend in the future is, what's the key learning? Like, why was it successful, right? So there's, on this slide, I don't see it, but just as a heads up in the future. So first question I have is, love the creators that you selected, Ewok, Myth, and Kitty, definitely played a diversity and inclusion. But that investment in those numbers that you shared are definitely around year-long partnerships, I would assume. Given that, especially Ewok and Myth specifically play first-person shooters majority of the time, how would you differentiate between them playing first-person shooters and with a game that obviously US Bank is not comfortable with, and the ability to activate for US Bank over the duration of the year?
This particular activation and how US Bank would enter with these three partnerships, the idea, if it was a picture perfect world, they would start the activation after the gaming has been done. So they wouldn't be playing the first person shooter while they were doing the activation. It would be, they would have wrapped up playing the game for their day or during their stream. And then there'd be a couple minutes set aside to then utilize the activation. So we believe that that kind of differentiation there would be enough to kind of utilize this activation beyond the FPS. They also do other games that are not FPS. So there also is the potential to say when, you know, Myth is playing Fall Guys, that you do that activation rather than when he's playing Valorant or Fortnite.
Okay. I have another follow-up question. On slide 25, you guys show US Bank on the Rocket League cars. Given that you talked to Lindsay Eckhouse, and I'm assuming did some research in the Rocket League esports ecosystem, did you see any logos of brands on any cars?
There weren't any other logos that have done that, but I think, you know, coming in at our price point, I think that we can potentially convince them, as long as it's not, you know, taking up the entire car, we're still keeping their logo as kind of the centerpiece. I think that could be potentially something that we can work out.
Was that something you asked Lindsay, given that she was at G2?
No.
Yeah, you can't.
I would say,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, the other thing to add to that is you have like Ford doing a partnership where they're having a car in game that models like the F-150 is something that they're bringing to Rocket League. So that's a different way to look at it. And then also, if you're playing Rocket League, you can get team brands on the cars. So this would just kind of be a further extension of that, to have like an actual brand as opposed to a team.
I think it's a good call. I mean, everyone wants in-game content. I just know specifically Rocket League just doesn't do that. So that's why I'm asking you. Like, that would have been a good question for Lindsay, specifically. Those are the two questions I had. Good job, though.
Hi, Tom Stallings here. I had a quick question about the folks that you're endorsing here, Ewok, Myth, and Kitty Plays. Myth has a following of 26 million. The other one's 1.45 million, 1.75 million. The amount of money that you're spending with Myth is about 3 times what it is the others, but it has Myth has a much greater following. Was curious. Why wouldn't you spend more money or a greater amount of money in really get to these 26 million followers as opposed to splitting it the way you did? Was curious about the thoughts behind that.
Yeah, so just in some of our talks with industry professionals when trying to get a sense of the financials, what we found was someone of kind of Myth's following is in that 750 to 800,000 range. Beyond what we find with the two lower at the 250, you know, there's an aspect of, we can go all in on one streamer, but we could also take a look in the sense of doing it across the board, promoting that diversity, equity, and inclusion. Beyond just an African American male, we could also have a transgender esport athlete, as well as a female that already is doing a lot in the space too. So that's why we decided to divvy it up that way, as opposed to just sticking with one, say, really large streamer.
Okay. Do you think that you could get these folks for less than $250,000 and have them doing kind of the same things? Or do you think that 250 is kind of the basement that you have to pay to be able to get them to participate in a promotion like this?
My assumption is that we highballed that a little bit with the 250. So, we wanted to certainly be prepared to lower that number if need be. And if US Bank decides to go forward with it, we wanted to be prepared to see what the maximum cost would be. So there's always obviously potential for negotiation. 250 is the number that we thought would make the most sense without being too reckless, I guess is the way I would say it.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Jeff. Oh, sorry. About the TwitchCon activation. You spent $1 million on that, and I know there's 28,000 people attending it, and that's your sort of target market that you're reaching. Is there any opportunity outside of the people that are there for all that money that you're spending? Because for all the other activations or all the other things that you did like a cost per new account. Do you have any sense besides the people that are at that? Those might just be the people in the industry, but is there any way for other people to be accessing or seeing this activation besides who goes to your booth?
Yep. So during the whole event, like all of these streamers are using their own channels to go to their live on when it's showing what they're doing there. And then also they have these areas that are specific for the streamers to come in and play games. And during the backdrop of it, they'll have logos, and US Bank would be featured on that logo with the Diamond sponsorship.
Got it.
So it would be going out to the entire digital audience as well.
But will those people will there be some place they'll be driven, like if they wanted to sign up or be able to track if those people sign up or that are part of this activation?
No, that wasn't necessarily part of this one, but I mean, we would still have those digital ads being played, so we could potentially incorporate something like that where you can go build an account here during our actual ads throughout the conference.
Got it. Great, thank you.
And I was going to ask about the two team sponsorships of Team Envy and Space Station Gaming. You're spending twice as much on them as you are on the three influencers and 4 times what you're spending on the Rocket League sponsorship. Am I missing it, or are there not calculations for the return on investment of what's 50% of your budget?
So a lot of our thought process behind this was there are some parts of this impact and engagement that we couldn't find or research just yet. And a lot of that is going to come from after events or after streams. So as these teams are winning tournaments, as they're doing live streams, a lot of their content is retweeted or reposted to these websites for engagements and impressions with fans that follow a lot of these athletes that our teams are going to focus on. And so a lot of that engagement piece, we couldn't necessarily find a financial piece to kind of gauge out how that impact's going to be. With that with that partnership, we do predict that this will be a year-long partnership with these two teams. And so that's where, as we grow and after first few months, then we could go back and engage on whether or not this was an investment that has started to see an ROI and exactly what that exact number could potentially be. I know that, as Sean kind of mentioned with the followers, we could have done that piece, and that was where on our part we kind of fell short with this engagement. But a lot of what we are looking at is kind of where that lasting impact is going to come from with these athletes that we're going to focus on and with these teams that we're going to focus on as they continue to do tournaments throughout the next year.
Okay.
That is a great question, Steve, because I having come from the esports team side, I could tell you that those numbers are way high, but to Sean's point earlier, they definitely highballed it. I had a couple questions on the team stuff. I thought you guys did a great job in identifying 2 premier Rocket League organizations, and that was fantastic. One thing is, if I was presenting this, I would have called out that Space Station just won the Rocket League North American Championship yesterday. That would have been a nice tie to how good of a team they were, because that literally just happened last night. So something to consider in the future. But in terms of the teams, one of the great things about Space Station that you could have really capitalized on, I guess why didn't you is they're creators in the Rocket League ecosystem. They have a ton of women, up and coming women creators, as well as Sunless Khan, who's one of the top creators in Rocket League, but we didn't mention them at all. Was there any consideration given to that, given that you wanted to, a question earlier was all these great creators like Myth and Ewok, but you didn't hit on any of the creators that SSG had, and really anyone that Envy had, in terms of how do you reach, like, there's not that golden thread of, like, to steal Stephanie's line of how do you connect all of these different ideas. The strategy, it's just not connected. You missed it. So why? Like, what was the process there?
I mean, I think the goal with our partnership with those teams is that we're not just, being on the jersey and on the Rocket League car. Like, it would involve more content series and involvement with those streamers. So I think the goal of partnering with these teams is to get access to all of the streamers that already have gigantic platforms and utilizing them to create more native content on their platforms and not just kind of slapping our own logo on it. I think that's something that we'd have to work with them to figure out how they kind of want to build out that partnership and what ideas we can potentially collaborate on.
Yeah, I think the content series slide is where we don't necessarily use specific names, but we point to what you're kind of talking about in using the streamers to help kind of promote the brand. And then obviously the content series as a whole to promote diversity, equity, inclusion within the gaming and esports space.
I don't want to cut anybody off. If one judge has a quick question, Dave, I saw you turn your mic on, but we are up with the 10-minute Q&A, but it looks like we're all good. Dave's giving me the shake off. So thank you so much, Team V. That was great. We really appreciate it. Like I've said before, we are going to be announcing the winner at the Spring Summit, the NSF Virtual Spring Summit, May 19th and 20th. May 19th and 20th. So everybody, each school has 8 badges that they're able to utilize. So I'm assuming we'll see the 4 of you there at the Spring Summit. But for right now, thank you so much. We have everything we need from you now. You guys are more than welcome to stay and watch the next 2 finalists if you'd like to. You guys have already presented, so no issues there. But for now, I'm gonna ask the judges, if you want to click the breakout rooms button on the bottom right-ish side of your screen, and it will take you back to the judges breakout room. If you want to go back over there to discuss the presentation, you can do that now. But thank you all so much, Team B, and you'll hear back from us at the Spring Summit. So thank you, and then everybody else, like the audience, just hang tight. We should be getting the next presentation started at about, I'd guess like 1:05, and we'll head back to the screen. So judges, if you want to head to the breakout session room, you can do so now. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly.